So last night I went into we gave one an award away for the first guy that put $50 in our donation, and I didn't find out later we had a guy that put 100 in. So we're going to give him tonight's free gift, and it's Gil. So Gil, come on up and get this.
Hey, Gil.
And these are made right over here by David Jukes. Wave your hand, Dave. He made these and he gave these to us, and these are pretty cool. So this reminds you of being here.
Terry, come up here.
Uh-oh, am I in trouble?
Yeah, Terry.
Yep. Always.
Okay, Terry. This is for Terry Carter for all the stuff he's done for this whole organization here. If it wasn't for Terry, I wouldn't be here.
None of us would.
Terry.
Man, I appreciate this. This is awesome. You sure you want to give this up? This is awesome. Hey, it ain't me, it's you guys. It's the people that are willing to listen to let me interview them, and you guys for watching. And I appreciate you guys, and I don't know, I can't thank you guys enough, so thank you guys.
Okay, I'm gonna start the open mic right now. Now, I've got two stories and they're treasure related. So I've given the one story at the powwow in Morgan. So dang it, if you've heard this, don't be raising your hand, because we're gonna give this away if whoever gets the right answer. It's kind of a tough one, but yes, come here. Okay, so about 8 years ago or so, we used him 2 times. We had a speaker come and talk at our powwow, and he did, I hate to say deep sea, but he did ocean treasure hunting. And we brought him in and we got to know him pretty good. And I've been diving since I was 19-ish, and I just ate it with a spoon. I just absolutely loved it. So, so fast forward a lot of years, but you kind of get tired of diving, because you swim over here, then you swim over here. So I thought this has got to be something better than this. Yep. So this guy came and he says, if you guys want to come, you can come. Well, it was in the Dominican Republic, and it was kind of one of these, I'm coming. So I hooked up a couple of guys and we went to the Dominican Republic with him. Now, I got to tell you the rules of how this is to help you out. Now, pay attention to this, because there's a quiz at the end, and you get a free Bigfoot sticker if you get it. Yeah. So, when you go to these treasure hunters that hunt in these foreign countries, this was the Dominican. I don't know if you go to other countries if it's the same, and I don't really know the details of it, but you petition the government for 10 miles of shoreline. And 10 miles of shoreline, basically, that's all yours, and I assume it's for a year. I don't know, and I'm assuming that it goes out to international waters, I guess. So anything in there, that's yours, sort of. So what happens is you take your boat out if that's what you're doing, but you always got to have, I would say as a National Guard guy, but an Army guy from the Dominican to go with you. So we had a young kid. Every time you go out, dang it, you better have them with you, or I think you'd be in big trouble. So we had this kid that would go out with us, and we went and dove a wreck that they had started on and had been diving. And so if you find anything, they bring it out. The Army guy is there, and the guys that are in charge of it, they're there, and they're looking at things, and so they document them. And so everything you got that you find goes into a central place in the capital, which is, I think, Santo Domingo. If somebody knows, tell me. I think that's right. So these treasure hunters, it's very important for them, if they find a coin, now these are just made up numbers, but it's the comparisons I wanted to tell you. If they find a coin, it's worth, say, $100, right? An old Spanish coin, for instance. Well, if they can nail it down to a wreck, and then they can study up on the wreck and say our wreck went down in 1564. If they can nail it down like that, then this $100 coin's worth maybe a couple $100. All right? So it's important. So they would look for different things like pewter, or if they were lucky, they could get an anchor, something like that, anything that can tie them in where they can go there and do their footwork and find out what the name of the wreck is. So it's very important. So we went diving there, and down the shore, so on this 10-mile shoreline, nobody can come into yours. So if there's another treasure hunter, you have to stay off of his, he has to stay off of yours. So that's kind of how that works. So down the coast from where we were diving, 50, 70 miles, something like that, there was a guy on a team, a treasure hunter team. They were on a pirate ship. Now, this $100 coin gets bumped up to $200. If it comes off of a pirate ship, it might be $500. So that's pretty cool to break that up. Here's the question. How do you know you're on a pirate ship? Feel free to lift your hands up. And that's good. I got this, by the way. Now, it's very simple. I've told you everything you needed to know. Nobody? Wait a minute. Your wife got it. You're out.
No, she didn't tell me.
She got it with the... All right, go ahead.
There's coins and equipment from several different countries.
Yes. Okay, does that make sense? Think about it. If you're diving a Spanish wreck, you're going to find Spanish coins and stuff. Spanish, 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 Spanish. You guys cheated. You know you did.
I know what it is. I almost became a history teacher.
Okay. Well, but if you're on a pirate ship, think about it. What are the chances that the pirates stole the ship? It might be a Spanish ship. There is no way that they commissioned to have that ship built. No way. So they stole the ship. And then they was robbing the pants off the Spanish and the French and the English and Portuguese. So in their belly of their boat, they've got all this different coinage. So that's how they knew they were on his pirate ship. Now tell me that's not cool.
It's because they never run out of R.
There you go. You can have it now, or you can come, I'll bring it to you later.
I'll get it later.
All right. So, my other story for the open mic, and then we're opening it up to everybody. So, I told you when, hey, the missionaries are there. Cool. So, I was telling you, whatever they find, they have to send it to this central place. And it was just an old building in the Capitol building, and from where we were, I kid you not, it was like driving to St. George. And I thought, well, whatever, I'll go. So we go there, and we go into this warehouse. It was pretty secure, reasonably secure, probably very secure for the Dominican Republic, not terribly secure for here. And we go in there, and the guy that we were with, so Roger and I were there, and Roger's got all this stuff like Terry, all this photographic equipment. And so this, I'm going to tell you his name, but this guy goes, oh, they're with the Discovery Channel. And as soon as that happened, we were like gold. Can I get you some water? Can I get you a sandwich? If you want to walk over here, I'll carry you so you don't have to walk yourself. No, you're fine, you're good, all's well. So anyway, they were fooling around with the cameras, and I just asked the guy, because there was different rooms, big, huge rooms. And I said, well, can I just go look around? Because different treasure hunters were set up on different tables, right? And so they could keep everything straight. So I was going along, I'm going to leave the best for last, but we go into this big room, and to tell you how big these ships are, I mean, they had to have been massive. And you figure our ship went down, what did I tell you, 1564? So 500 years roughly. There's nothing left on the bottom of the ocean. There's no chunks of wood. I mean, unless you've got, maybe there's circumstances, and then a lot of the metal, I got a cannonball when I left there. It's about this big, but it had been in the ocean for 1 million years, and everything has to go into this government place, but they said, we're so sick of cannonballs, we don't want to see another cannonball, so I brought it home. And hold this thought. So I go in this other room, and there's these great big anchors. I mean, they're probably as high as the ceiling right here, and long, but they soak them in water. And somebody knows better than me. The salt takes out something in the metal, and this helps it put it back in. Well, that's what I thought. So when I brought mine home, I soaked it in water for months and months and months. Well, I didn't know you have to put a slight electrical charge in there. I mean, I don't know why, but that's what they do. So they would have to rotate these big anchors or anything metal they would put in there. And then to go back, when I was diving there, one of the Dominicans, which were really amazing divers, they call them cookies, and they're little, it would be like this, and I mean, I seriously would look at it and I'd have no idea what it is. Well, they do. So that's what they have to clean off, and that's one of the reasons it goes to this clearinghouse. So I was walking around and looking at the stuff on these tables, not touching, believe me, but they had about maybe twice the size of a bowling ball, like this, and if you look close, there was just a million little coins stuck in there in every direction, and it had just fused together on one of the boats, in the hull with somebody had pulled it out, and they hadn't cleaned it off yet, but it was just perfectly round. So there's my 2 open mic stories. Who wants to be the first, second, third, whatever?
I'll just tell 2 quick stories here. The first one was my only experience with what I termed as Bigfoot later. At the time, it didn't dawn on me. And what's that?
What's your name?
I'm Rick Crawford. I'm from southern Utah, from Escalante, and I got tied into this group of people probably about 15 years ago. Some good people here. Anyway, I was out coyote hunting one morning, and I would go out and drive the roads and look for fresh tracks. Well, it had froze the night before, probably just after dark, and so I knew I was after, night-old tracks. I'd go out and call and go to the next track and go out and call, and as I was driving down the road, it was over by just outside of Zion's National Park. It was a real rugged area, cliff faces, a lot of pine trees, broken rocks. And as I went down the road, I saw some strange tracks came onto the road. And I said, man, that is the biggest hippie I have ever seen in my life, track. And he came onto the road last night just before dark. He walked down the road about 5 miles, and then he went back up into the cliffs. And at the time, I just thought, well, he must have been smoking something pretty good. But later, as I got home, I said, man, why didn't I go take pictures of the tracks? Because they were weird. They didn't look like a normal human. They were about 6-7 inches wide and 17 inches long. And I thought maybe it was Mark Eaton down there visiting or something. But I think it was probably Bigfoot. But my other experience I wanted to tell was years ago, I guided big game hunts here in the Uintas and all around Utah and different places, and I was up in the head of Rhoades Canyon, up above DeFay's Dude Ranch. I don't know if that's still DeFay's. I haven't been in that area for years, and there's 3 or 4 friends and some clients, and we were camped down there in the bottom, and we'd been out hunting during the day, and we came back in the evening to fix dinner and tell stories and get ready for bed. And meanwhile, a group of Native Americans had come in and put their camp right across from where we were at. And I thought, well, these guys must be hunting. But about 6 o'clock, they started a great big old fire, and they got these big drums out and set them all around, and they started beating on the drums. And time went on, it got dark, and I don't know if there was some fire water involved, but the drums started beating a little harder and longer, and I told the guys, I said, well, we're not going to get much sleep. We might as well just have this cultural experience. And it got about midnight, and I thought, surely these guys are going to quit. But I don't know if it was ceremonial or the time of the year. It was in October. But they just kept getting louder and stronger and louder, and then some more guys showed up. And then all of a sudden, about midnight, I think it was a little after midnight, it was just, the canyon was just reverberating with sound. And all of a sudden, we just heard a tremendous noise up on it would be on the north side of the canyon, so it would have been on the Duchesne River, right at the mouth where it comes out into Rhoades. Just the biggest, loudest rock slide you'll ever hear in your life started. And it was so loud, we thought that the whole camp was going to get covered with rocks. But you couldn't jump up and run out of your tent. Where do you go? There's nowhere to go. And it went on. It seemed like about a minute, but it probably only lasted about 15, 20 seconds. And then it was quiet. And I heard, it was just dead silent over there. Those guys weren't pounding on their drums anymore. I heard one of the guys, holy. And then it just a flurry of activity, and the drums and the tents and the fire went out, and everybody jumped in their trucks and away they went. And I don't know if they awakened the gods or what their point or purpose was, but it was a pretty amazing experience. I think that the vibration in the canyon and the sound had loosened those rocks, and we did get a little bit of sleep that night. But that's my Uinta Native American story.
This is a good one. It's a short one, but dang it, it's a good one. You just talked to me.
Okay, I've got two stories. I'll tell you start with the first one. Anyway, me and my wife were going to Alaska on a cruise, and we were flying into Washington, into Seattle. and I read a lot of books about aliens and, UFOs, and because I find it interesting. And one of them had mentioned these orbs that just hover. And so I've got my face planted right against the window because I want to, they said one of the things that people don't see this stuff because they don't look. And so I thought, well, I'll start looking. And so like I say, I've got my face planted against the window, and we were landing, and so the plane's starting to slow down. We're probably doing about 150 to 175. And just past the wingtip on my side, which would have been the right side of the plane, there was this orb, just bigger than a basketball, and was just hovering there, just hanging in the sky. It was completely clear, but it had mechanical stuff in it, like, I don't know, I only seen it for probably 2 seconds because, like I said, it's sitting here and the plane's screaming by, and I jerked back, tried to look down the aisle to see if I could see out the other windows, but of course you can't. But and then I kicked myself in the pants later. I should have been the last person off the plane, and so I could have talked to the pilots to see if they seen it too, but I didn't. But so that's my first story. And this thing was clear. It was pretty cool. I mean, if you wouldn't have been close to it, you wouldn't have seen it because it's not that big. Anyway, so my second story is I drive truck, and I had been to Vernal to deliver groceries, and the store, I drive for Smith's, and they don't want their groceries before 10, so if you're pulling a set, doubles, it takes you quite a while to get home. By the time I emptied my trailer, I was probably midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning coming back home. And so by the time I got to approximately just Strawberry Reservoir, I pulled over. This is January, and the thermometer in my truck said it was 16 below. So I'm just driving along, and I needed to check the tires. And just so you know, that's a code word for take a leak. So I'm checking the tires, standing on the side of the road, and I look up, and here's this thing hanging in the sky. From the distance I was at, it couldn't have been, it looked to be about 50 feet in diameter, and it had lights going all the way around it, and it was just hanging there, and I was sitting there just awestruck and just watching it, and then I got this really creepy feeling like, you're probably the only one. This is like 3 in the morning, and I was thinking to myself, you're probably the only one in this whole valley that's seeing this. And I got this creepy feeling, and I thought, well, I really don't feel like being abducted. So I'm out of here. So I jump in my truck and take off, and that's my story. Well,
Tell them what happened, just so we know how old we're talking about on the story.
it couldn't have been more than two, 3 years ago. And
Tell that by his voice.
yeah,
Still breaking up, shook up over it.
well, you know, I've read enough books about people being abducted, and they do some painful things to these people, and so I didn't really feel like being abducted, so. And I didn't have any missing time experience, so I don't think I got abducted.
It's worse than a coloscopy, isn't it?
Thank you. You know what, he didn't want to come up. I had to really beat him up good, but he did great. We're going to go into our... Okay, come on up, Mike. Mac, am I going to have to come down there and manhandle you? I got nothing. Okay. Well, you know what, we're going to go into the speakers now, and if we have time at the end, we can go do some more open mic. But I want to just say a couple things. We've got so many people that we're so indebted to. The gardeners back there, and Dave Jukes for bringing all these signs. And, she's going to get mad at me, but if it wasn't for Patsy Sursa that talked last night sitting over there, this wouldn't happen. This was dead and gone. And she secured the park for us, and I'm not kidding you, if it wasn't for Patsy. And the problem is, Terry and I talked about this, we could put a video out and say, this is dead, but we don't know who's coming. We had no idea. Most of the people out here, I don't even know. What do you got, Tate?
Open mic.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm not going to really tell a story, but yesterday and today being here, and this is what we love about them. I've heard 100 stories from you people out there. Everybody either has their own stories or family stories. And man, I've heard some great ones in just the last 2 days. But I wanted to share something with you that happened just today. Since we lost our camp spot up at Moon Lake and that because of the flooding, so instead of bringing our trailer, we're staying in a motel in Duchesne. And so we got up and had breakfast and poked around, and then we thought, well, we'll come up. And I knew there was a family reunion going in the park here till about 3. They were supposed to get out so we could take over, but I thought I'd come by and see who was here. We come over and talked to a few people that were here, and then we headed over to Greg's place to see who was over there. And I knew they were talking about doing a second hike. They did some hikes in the Spanish stuff yesterday. Today they were going to Blind Frog, I think is where they went. We had permission to go in there, and that's the latest thing on the TV now, I guess weekly series or whatever. And so I thought, well, they might all be gone, but maybe a lot of them are getting to be old and rickety like me and can't do much hiking and that, and so we'll go over and see if there's somebody there that we can talk to. So we went over and parked over in Greg's little gravel parking lot just on the west side of his gas pumps there, if you've been over to his lodge over here in Mountain Home. And we were sitting there for a few minutes, and I decided, well, I'll go look in the back where he's got a gazebo and where we had a barbecue Thursday night now, see if there's people there. And I walked over and nobody was there. And thought, well, I'll walk around, come in the front door and see if there's people sitting in his lodge over there talking or eating or doing anything. So I come walking around the building, and just as I hit the corner there by the gas pumps to turn to go over across the front of his lodge, there was a pickup truck that had pulled into the gas pumps, and they were filling with gas at his lodge. And I come walking by him and turned the corner and started walking towards the lodge, and all of a sudden I hear somebody say, "Are you Kent Smith?" And I thought, okay, it's somebody that's just met me or seen me up on stage last night or something, somebody from our group. What are the chances of being somebody else? And so I turned around and I went over and I says, "Yeah, I'm Kent Smith." I walked over to the passenger window, is where it come from. And he says, I won't tell you his name, but he says, "Well, I'm LP. what is the issue? He used to live 2 houses away from me in Clinton, Utah. I'm in a cul-de-sac, and he was in the same cul-de-sac. They moved several years ago. But when I walked past the truck, I thought I recognized him. I thought, well, it's just somebody that I saw here, and I couldn't in my mind think if I really knew him other than maybe either seeing him sitting out there or maybe he'd come up and just said we're enjoying it or something. And I said, so what are you doing here? Are you part of our group? And that's when he told me, he says, I was your neighbor. And he tells me his name, and I'm going, oh, yeah, I know who you are. And, well, what are you doing up here? Do you live up here or something? He says, they just rescued me. He says, I was lost in the Uintas. And, yeah, it was pretty cool. I don't know how many people, I'm guessing probably hundreds, that's usually what they get, have been scouring the Uintas. And he was the guy, he and his son. And they just rescued him, and they're up to the lodge, they're filling with gas and taking him home. He looked pretty tough, he was tired, yeah. But, so, right while I was talking to him for just a few minutes, and I didn't want to gab a long time because he looked hammered, he looked exhausted, and he didn't have any cuts or anything I could see like that, but he looked like he had been run over by a truck kind of thing. And so I was just asking him, if he's okay and everything. But the guy who's driving the truck that found him, my friend keeps getting phone calls. I mean, when he hangs up, it's ringing again, and it's family and friends and everybody that heard he was rescued calling him. Excuse me. Anyway. So while he's talking to all these guys on the phone, I'm talking to the driver, and to start with, because I'm talking through the passenger window, he's talking on the phone, and I'm talking to a guy on the other side of him. So I finally says, get out of your truck, we'll meet over here and talk. Because I'm talking to the driver, not about his rescue or anything, but the guy I'm talking to, he says, my great-great-grandpa used to furnish with Rhoades with fresh horses when he'd come out with all his gold and everything, and he'd give him fresh horses and that up by Camas and that to take his gold back down into the valley and to Salt Lake and one thing or another. And he says he'd come all the time. He kept fresh horses for him and everything, and started telling me a bunch of other stories. And so he's here. The guy, I saw him. Raise your hand, the guy that rescued him today. He's here. I don't see his hand, but I saw him up in the park. We were up here getting a burger, and he was coming down, but he didn't know anything about this. And he says, "Oh man," he says, "I'm coming tonight. I'll bring a couple of people." And he gave me another person's name and says, "You need to call this guy because he'll take you up and show you a bunch of Spanish stuff and tell you all kinds of stories." And we get that constantly. That's how we get. I got lots and lots of maps and stories, and that I get them all the time. When I used to work, I'd get 3 to 9 stories a week for years. People coming in my office and different things. But what a small earth this is, and amazing stories from people, whether it's treasure or a friend, a small earth thing where he lived 2 houses away from me and he just got rescued. What a wonderful thing without losing somebody in the Uintas again. So anyway, I wanted to let you know that because I thought that was a cool story that they found the guy that was lost today. So.